We're here to celebrate. We're here to celebrate the life of Ron Gorow, his amazing accomplishments. Judy's asked me to speak. My name is John Eidspoke, and I don't think I'll be able to keep my words as concise and short as Ron's. As everyone knows, he's a man of few words, but those words are very powerful, and they pack quite a punch, usually right to the funny bone. So we have a number of people here that you will be hearing from whose lives have been touched and even created by Ron, namely his children and grandchildren. I think we're going to change the order of things a little bit. Our first person has stepped downstairs. So I'd like to call on a person who's known Ron his entire life, and that would be his son, Paul Gorow.
Hi, thanks. I'm Paul. Ron's my dad. Thanks for coming, and we want to do a thank you from the family. So if I could get a few members up here with me, I'd like to do that. Start with my sister Diana, and my aunt Nancy, my dad's sister, and my sister since I was about 15, Cynthia, Kathy, and Chris. If you could come up, please. We have more family in the front here, extended family and friends, and on behalf of us, we just wanted to say thank you for being here tonight, and thanks for all the people who have been with us for the last few days, almost a week now. All the support and the flowers and the cards and the messages and the thoughts and prayers, all the work in setting this up, and the program you have, and all the great things that we've experienced over the last few days. Thank you very much. And I'd like to stay up for a moment if I can and just say a couple things related to my father and I. One thought I'll never forget actually was when I was probably 8 or 9, this goes back to the mid-70s, I think, if I can take you back there. And my dad's relationship with my mom, stepmom, since I was 15, Judy here, had reached a point such that he knew that I was going to be a part of her life and she was going to be a part of my life. And so I was spending the summer with my father, and I knew that we were going to meet as a family. Didn't exactly know the details around that, but we were actually at a rehearsal one time. I was always going to rehearsals with my father. It was one of the best experiences I've ever had. And I believe this time we were down at the Musicians Union, and we were in one of the rooms, and he was rehearsing. And about halfway through, I got to sit with my dad, actually. There were 3 trumpets up there, I think, and we were in the middle, so I got to be the 4th chair, a little black folding chair, and sit with him, and about partway through the set, he leaned over and he said, "See that cute young lady over there walking in?" And there's another row of chairs in the room where people could sit and watch or wait or whatever, and there's only one person over there, and she was pretty cute, so I said, "Yeah, I see her," and he goes, "Run over there and say hi to her." So I said, "Okay," and I jumped down off the riser and ran around the back through all the instruments that weren't being used and over the music stands, and plopped down in the chair next to her and said hi. And I think I surprised her. And we had a conversation. It was something like, "Well, hi, how are you?" And I said, "I'm fine." And she said, "Are you on summer break?" And I said, "Yeah, I am." And she said, "Do you like music?" And I said, "Yeah, I do. I do like music." And I said, I like drums. And she goes, oh, are you here with the drummer? And I said, no. And after another pause, I think she said, are your parents here? And I said, yeah, my dad's here. She goes, oh, which one's your dad? Is he playing? And I said, yeah, he's the middle trumpet. His name's Ron. And her eyes got big, and she just lost her breath, and grabbed me and said, oh, you're Paul. I still didn't really know who she was, so I said, but I don't think my dad intentionally set up that situation, but I think he watched it all play out, and I think he really enjoyed it, and I'll never forget it. So one more note of mention that I'll never forget also is growing up with my dad and his sessions, weekly rehearsals, real gigs, whatever. Whenever he played, I remember I would always have musicians either could tell I was a son or would learn that I was a son and come and introduce themselves and say hi, and some of them may be in this room right now, and they would always tell me what a special person he was in terms of his spirit and his ability to live in his music. It's almost like music lives in him, if there could be such a thing, I don't know. And I could tell that they weren't just making chit-chat or talking to a youngster. I think they really sincerely wanted to tell me about his special abilities as a person and a musician. And I did get that. I got it then, and I get it now, and I really, really appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you, Paul. Now, I'd like to call up an entertainer. We've known and loved this man's music for almost 40 years, and that's how long Ron has been working with him. Richard Carpenter.
Thank you, John. I had the good pleasure to meet Ron Gorow 38 years ago. We started on the Close to You album together and worked on every one of them since, and a whole lot of other odds and ends in between. To me, Ron was immediately simpatico. Just a mellow guy with a great, droll sense of humor and a really tasty outlook on just about everything we talked about. Very knowledgeable, wise, very quiet. Sounds like I'm talking about the nature boy. But in a way, I think Ron was. And I remember one of the last great things that he recommended that I do, because I was a dyed-in-the-wool VHS user, and he said, forget your VA set, you have to get a TiVo. He said, how long have you known me? And at the time it would have been 35 years or something like that. And he said, you know me well enough that I'd never steer you wrong, get a TiVo. And we have one, and I think about him. Actually, Mary and I do, because she was with me, my wife Mary, every time we use the so we think of Ron lots. And we were absolutely shocked. We've been away for a couple of days to get the news. We'd just seen him and his lovely wife Judy at our Christmas party. And to hear of this, well, it just set us aback. The nicest fellow, and patient, because I'd have just about everything I wanted, right down to the last French horn note, worked out. Either I'd sung it onto a little cassette machine at the time, or I had it upstairs. But then once Ron was there and I started to play it, I'd say, wait a minute, it also could go this way. Do you like it this way, or do you like it that way? and he'd give me his opinion. And was always there. Our kids adored him. And everyone, he's one of the few people I know, and I know a lot of good people, but whom everyone who speaks of him speaks in glowing terms of Ron Gorow. And I will miss him more than I can say. And I guess I'll play one of the songs that we worked on together. If memory serves, it's been a while. And then there's this one lick that I came up with that Ron, for as impeccable an ear as he had, said, you know, if $1 million were offered him, he could never write down that lick. He could never figure it out. Just one lick in all those years. I like, it's For All We Know. It's a song I discovered watching a movie called Lovers and Other Strangers. And we were out on the road at the time. And so I called the coast and said, get me an acetate, an acetate, and that's all I need. I'll pick it up by ear. But it has great Joe Osborne descending bass lines. And Ron always enjoyed when we gave Joe some things to do. He was a great, studio bassist. So this is For All We Know. Thank you. The one lick is out of the Vamp to Top of the World. So it starts with the steel guitar and the electric piano, but then it goes, before it goes, right before that, if it starts with the steel, so, Judy and Ron's family, my heart goes out to you. I lived through this kind of shock myself, and believe me, I feel so deeply sorry, but that Ron kind of left us in the way he lived his whole life, which was softly quietly. So, thank you for allowing me to play and to speak.
Thank you, Ron. You know, I've never heard anyone call him Ronald. Everyone just calls him Ron. Oh, wait, I lied. His grandchildren call him Bebop. Bebop spent a major portion of his life playing trumpet and flugelhorn. He loves jazz and great jazz trumpeters. You can't go wrong with his idol, Clifford Brown. For a variety of reasons, the last couple of decades, Ron stopped playing. Well, you know, he's been busy writing a major book and a lot of music. Anyway, he decided he didn't need his trumpets anymore, and he just recently gave his last axe, his flugelhorn, to his grandson Jackson. Through Grandpa Bebop, Jackson has come to love and appreciate jazz and is sure to carry on Ron's jazz traditions. Jackson, you want to come up and play? Jackson's going to start with a a cappella version of a song called Graceful Swan, which was written by his cousin, Aaron, Paul's son. He's now going to do a song that was written by Bebop for him, I think, or for maybe, I don't know, just for him. It's called Sunny Day. Jackson also can play some blues. I was practicing with him the other day, and he started going, and I started playing some blues, and he just kept playing right along. Maybe later we can try that. Now we'd like to bring up Paul's daughter, Melody, and Melody's going to play for you, Daddy's Home. And now we'd like to hear from Melody's brother, Aaron. And Aaron is actually a very big Billy Joel fan. I've heard him play some great Billy Joel. But what he's going to do for you tonight is a little thing that he has come up with. It's an improvisation. And I know it's improvisation because I've heard him play many times, and each time it's different. My wife Julie and I first met Ron at Joanne King Music Service, where Ron is a music proofreader. You know, when we tell friends and relatives about our jobs in music and the people in movies we work with, they think, wow, that's exciting. If they only knew, we just sit around in a quiet office looking silently at notes. You see, it works this way. The music copyists create a piece of music, and they give it to the proofreader, and the proofreader says, well, here's where you went wrong. Of course, Ron is more tactful than that. I've seen him write in jest on a part, what were you thinking? Here's another proofreader from Joanne King Music who's worked side by side with Ron for more than 15 years, Lars Clutterham.
As John said, Ron and I spent more than 15 years working together at Joanne King Music across the desk from each other. Most days, Monday through Friday, many weekends. I'm a walking example of that old truism that Ron spent more time with the guy at the office than he did with his wife. And Joanne King Music, as many of you know, and John just mentioned, is in the business of doing music preparation for films, recording, and concerts. And all of us who work there are deeply involved in the arcane world of putting music notation on the printed page in all its elaborate minutiae. In a business like this, sometimes you don't know if you're in it for your love of music or despite your love of music. But Ron's deep love of music was always evident. Even though he and I came from what could be described as opposite ends of the music spectrum. He was a jazzer from the get-go, and I was more or less an all-classical music geek. Nevertheless, his knowledge of the entire spectrum of music was imposing, and our mutual respect grew from day one. I remember being hugely impressed when he mentioned to me one day at work that his favorite piece was Ravel's Daphnis and Chloe. I don't recall if he was describing the entire ballet or one of the two suites, but it struck me that this is a work to be truly loved best only by someone of great musical intelligence and sophistication. One other early epiphany was our mutual affinity for the same chord spellings. Now, if you're a musician, you know that if you agree with another musician on even a few spellings of a chord, you have already reached a rapport with that individual higher than agreeing on every element of politics and possibly even religion. So this was a significant measure of the strength of our working relationship. Beyond our ability to find a way to agree on things, Ron, through crisis after crisis, always proved himself totally unflappable and totally a gentleman. He also knew, as Paul and John and Richard have mentioned profoundly, that humor can live in any situation. And his laconic sense of humor could break out in an instant with a pithy observation that would put the whole situation in focus. I'd like to give you an example, and I'll need to set this up a little bit. We have a delightfully co-ed proofing staff at Joanne K. Music. 3 men and 1 woman, and one of us is gay. And the 4 of us sit together in our work carols in a little alcove that's a bit set off into the wall from the rest of the staff. So at the daily morning meeting, this is probably sometime within the last month, under discussion is the ongoing challenge to keep all the minutiae I mentioned a bit earlier from bumping into each other on the page. Dynamics must not collide with notes, articulations must not run into slurs, bar numbers must not get in the way of anything more important, and so on and so forth. Several statements at this point have already been made about the importance of this never-ending challenge. And as all this rises to a crescendo, Ron stops the conversation. We have a rule in this corner, he says, pointing solemnly at the proofer alcove. No touching. Now, having told that story, I have to close by observing that Ron's statement wasn't quite exactly true. Because he did touch us. With his humor, with his musicianship, with his gentility, with his simple, straightforward humanity. So, to Ron, I say this now. We love you. We will miss you. And we will always remember you.
Thank you, guys. We'd now like to hear from a singer-songwriter who used to work with Christina, Judy's daughter. And even more importantly, Ron is a great fan of her work. Ladies and gentlemen, Chantal Cardiazic.
I've never played this song before, but I've heard it many times in my life. And when I was asked to play it, I thought it was a perfect song. I'm a little pregnant, so I'm going to try not to cry because I seem to cry at far less things, like in traffic on the way. So we'll just try to. comic Valentine. You make me smile with my heart. Your looks are laughable, unphotographable. Yet you're my favorite work of art. Is your figure less than Greek? Is your mouth a little weak? When you open it to speak, are you smart? But don't change a hair for me. Not if you care for me. Stay, little Valentine. Stay. Each day is Valentine's Day.
Thank you, Chantal. I can attest to her now. She sent an email back saying that she didn't know that song, but she would learn it. This is yesterday. I'd like to mention a communication that Judy got from Wisconsin. She and Ron have been going to a place called Mineral Point. It's a town called Mineral Point in Wisconsin, and it's kind of an artist community. They have a center for the arts called Shake Rag Alley. Anyway, they were very touched, and sad to hear that Ron had passed, and they set up a scholarship in Ron's name for aspiring young talent in the performing arts, and have already received $500 in his memory. So you can find them on the web if you search for Shake Rag Alley. It's a beautiful place in the southwestern corner of Wisconsin, and we plan to try to go there. But you're going to be going there again in August. In August, and she's told me a lot about it. Now we'd like to hear from a great musician, composer, orchestrator, and speaker, Conrad Pope.
Doing what I do, I seldom get on. I wish that there were a better occasion, but it's good to see all of you here, and I know Ron would be happy to see all of us together. And it's so good to see so many of my friends that I've known for so many years. Though there were a few people I knew in town as long as I did Ron Gorow. And before I get started, I'd like to read something that is from an aspect of Ron's life that I can't touch upon too much, but Ron was just an amazing, generous man. And I once had a teacher in music that said, a really good musician plays a little, thinks a little, and teaches a little. And Ron was a teacher. It's, in case you don't know it, is that Ron actually got a lot of great musicians going in town, was always very supportive, always encouraged their careers. And I've received an email from one of the gentlemen that he encouraged and brought to town, a fellow from Norway, Hans Oferdal. And Hans has written an email, and if I may, I'll try to read it as fast as I can. So. Thankfully not. That's not one of my strong suits. Hans writes, "Dear all, my friendship with Ron started almost 10 years ago, kind of accidentally, when I replied to an email I thought was from my supervisor at the University of Oslo, and it was actually from Ron. My supervisor, Sigvald Tveit, knew Ron from the days at Dick Grove's school, and he come forward and forwarded Ron's email about film music to me. Ron replied to my email that he could not read any other language than English, and gently asked me if I could reply in English, which I did, something that then started a long-lasting friendship. This friendship has made a big impact on my life in two ways. First of all, Ron was always available on email, and I can't begin to count all the numerous extended emails I received from him, where we talked about everything related to music. He was never afraid of sharing his knowledge, and to me, this communication was a big inspiration. Our friendship developed so that he let me work on the second edition of his book by letting me give comments on what he had written. He paid me back by proofing my thesis on Jerry Goldsmith. And during all my trips to LA, and when I was living in LA some years ago, Ron was a very good friend and helpful in several ways. He also introduced me to friends of his, gave me lots of material, recordings and scores that he collected. He was extremely generous and always paid for dinner. Every musician appreciates that. Ron knew that. I think I was only allowed to buy him coffee once. Secondly, Ron was the one that made the whole Goldsmith adventure happen for me, so I could receive photocopies of scores and sketches, attending recording sessions, studying Jerry's work on the scoring stage. It resulted in a short thesis and an extended thesis on Jerry's compositional technique. And because of this, I got to meet Jerry several times and attend sessions when I was living in London and later in LA. My study of Jerry's scores will continue and has become the backbone of my craft. And it was Ron, on his own initiative, that called Joanne Kane and asked her to call Jerry. And that's how it all got started. I will always be grateful to Ron for this. I'm glad that I had this friendship with Ron and that it was part of my life. The impact it has had on my life goes beyond words. Ron's passing is very painful for me, and I'm going to miss him a lot. It is hard to imagine that I will never receive another email from him. But I'm glad that I was able to tell him how much I appreciated our friendship and everything he has done for me. I'm glad that I went to LA in January and met him, and I'm glad that Ron seemed to be very happy with his life and committed to his music. The last dinner we had, he also let me pay. I will remember Ron and everything he taught me, and I will teach it to others. I offer my deepest condolences to Judy and his family, to John and Julie, to Conrad and all of Ron's friends, and to Russ and everyone at Joanne Kane Music Service. And so, all I can say is, I can second everything that Hans says. I met Ron almost 20 years ago, when I think he was entering what Lars called in his RMA bulletin, I guess the last third of his career, when he was moving away from playing trumpet and settling down, if you will. And I met him because I was working at Joanne Kane's, as so many of us have in this room. I didn't get to work at Joanne Kane's quite as long because I was not, when you say despite music or what you said, I totally agree. I understand the frustrations and the challenges of the job. But I was always impressed by Ron and how he always took it all in and never lost his calm or cool or his professionalism. But in any case, just to continue the brief anecdote, we were doing a movie, and I won't say which one, and the composer needed an amanuensis. He needed someone to sit by him at every moment and take down everything that he played and did. And it was going to be a very big picture, because in Hollywood we only make very big pictures. And it was very important that this composer had the absolute best the very best, the top, the grandest, everything. Didn't matter what the music was. That's a different story. But we needed the very, very best. And everybody said, we looked around the room at all of us, and we said, we're screwed. This can't happen. So somebody piped up, a fellow that worked at Joanne Kane that is probably now long forgotten, Scott Harris, who was a clarinetist that played in a rehearsal band with Ron. He said, hey man, you want a guy with monster ears? You got to get Ron Gorow. Joanne said, Ron who? Ron Gorow. I said, get him in here. So Ron came in, and Ron was like Chet Baker cool. He came in, and he was everything you expected a West Coast jazzer to be. And I thought, when I grow up, I want to be him. And Ron walked into the Lion's Den, and trust me, those of you that know me know what a calm person I am. He walked into an impossible situation and performed magnificently. And the big Hollywood movie was semi-big. The score was great because of the efforts of a lot of people, not the least of which Ron Gorow. And Ron, from that day forward, was at Joanne Kane. Because Joanne realized when she looked around at all of us, and she'd finally gotten the best, this was a good start. So, that's when Ron and I became friends, because as I got to know Ron more and more working there, I was impressed by his incredible ears, by his incredible musicianship, and for a man who was so cool, Chet Baker cool, that there was an incredible passion within him for music. Because the one thing that I think most musicians know is that when you have the kind of mastery of an art that Ron had, that comes from only great passion. The great need to know something that you love as deeply as music. Because, as another one of my teachers once said, music is like marrying somebody you know will only cheat on you. But you keep married to them. Because it always kinds of disappoints because it is something that once you commit to, it's so hard. And Ron committed to it. And that's where his mastery came from, and the discipline. And that you were always aware of that great passion he had for music at every turn. And then the more I got to know Ron, actually off campus, so to speak, away from the Fox lot, we would sit and talk, and that's when I learned of his book. And Ron had learned of something of my background and checkered career before Joanne Kane's. And so we would sit around and talk about a wide variety of issues about music theory. And it was clear that this passion extended into all areas, both theoretical, things that might even more arcane than notes colliding with one another. He was quite knowledgeable about obscure theorists such as Riemann, Schenker, though he was much more like Z.P. Bach, for those that study this kind of nonsense. He was very concerned with being practical and communicative, and making it possible for others that might have a passion for music, wherever they are, whether or not it's in Los Angeles or in Iowa, that they might be able to tap something inside them that he had found inside himself, that probably surprised him when he found it. But he knew from the love that it gave him of music that he would work and this would come out. And this is what his book, and we talked many hours about hearing and writing music. And I think that it's such a astonishing accomplishment that Hollywood is filled with so many great musicians. There's so many people, so many wonderful people around us, but so few then have the further discipline or the generosity, if you will, to commit in words something that will help others find the passion within themselves to do this thing that will cheat on them. No. And that's the other part of Ron that I remember is just his generosity. And it was his always trying to help people, getting the call at night. And I will leave you with something that said, Ron, I did the first 3 awful feature films I composed as a composer, and most people in this room don't know me as a composer. I don't blame you. Ron was instrumental in making those things happen, was always there. He made sure that everything went amazingly well. And that's when we really began our communication in music. And when I heard the news, like all of you, I could tell by the tone on the phone that something had happened. But it was like almost a German sentence. What happened at the end of the sentence, when I heard that it was wrong, I could not believe. And all of us of a certain age can attest, if you've lost people in your life, that with Ron, I know that for all of us, certainly for me, I do know that this is an aching void that I can't comprehend just yet. And it's a great shock. But all I can say is that all of us here, I know, are richer for Ron having been with us. I know he certainly made the music at Joanne Kane interesting even when it wasn't. And I certainly know that he's made music something, a possibility for not only a lot of people here in this room, but for many people that will be able to buy his book and find something within themselves. And that is indeed a generous gift that we should all be thankful for. And thank you, Ron, for everything you've been for all of us. And thank you.
Thank you, Conrad. I'm appreciating everybody's patience. I know a lot of you are standing here, and it's getting a long time. And I thought about skipping over this next segment, and then I realized this is about Ron. So I hope you can.
Sorry, can you tap on the shoulder?
Find another leg to lean on or something.
Where the tape's got to.
Ron often mentions that he likes to use the composing advice of another famous proofreader, Amy Varicki. When Amy would talk about his own writing, he'd say, "I just try to not write anything stupid." And I think that's good advice, and Ron seemed to adapt that philosophy in his own music. It would surprise you just how much music Ron has written because he's so modest, and he really doesn't talk about it. For the past 2 years, Ron's been working on a major orchestral work, and he's kept it a secret, so most of you have no idea that he's up to. The piece is called Earth Tones, and it's written for strings and percussion, featuring the double contrabass flute played by Roland So. There are only 4 of these giant flutes in the world, and Ron was so taken by the stature and sound of the instrument and Roland's playing that he's been devoting almost all of his free time to writing this piece. To give you an idea about this flute, it stands 8 feet tall. It has a cross piece that you blow in and goes up here, down here, and back up. It's, I believe, 16 feet of tubing. Its low note is the low C on the bottom of the piano. It has the same range as a contrabass fiddle with the low C attachment. So it's quite an amazing thing. Earth Tones begins with a section called Primitive Earth and progresses through time and musical styles, through 3-note themes, 4-note themes, pentatonic, Renaissance period, Baroque, classical, romantic, war, peace, jazz, and goes into the future. And it's pretty ambitious, I guess.
Wow.
I'd like to play you just a tiny sample of this. What you'll hear is an opening of the piece, which is from Primitive Earth. It's just a few phrases of the flute all alone. And then there's a piece, a little small section. This is only 1 minute of music. A small section of an embedded symphony that he has put into this work. Ron's son-in-law, Thomas, is a professional in the field of video, and he's put together a video presentation highlighting Ron's life. The soundtrack features Ron playing his own tune called Song for Judy. Hang in there, everybody. Next we're going to hear from one of the greatest a cappella vocal groups around. Actually, I guess they're not going to be a cappella tonight. But this group is the brainchild of Morgan Ames, who's been a long-time friend of Ron and Judy's. In fact, Judy met Morgan at a class, and they hit it off and became good friends. So she told Ron that he should meet Morgan. And Ron said, "You mean the Morgan Ames?" And she goes, "Well, yeah, what?" See, to Judy, Morgan was just a great person she'd met, not the famous and talented singer, lyricist, and songwriter that would impress Ron. I'll let Morgan take it from here and tell you what they're going to do.
Hello.
Hi.
We're going to do a song. We do a show every year. A Christmas show at the Jazz Bakery. Judy and Ron would come and sit right in the front so that I could see them, even when I couldn't see anyone else. And it would register in Ron's eyes. He was a discerning musician. He had trouble with the world of non-discerning musicians. Basically, the world. I proved his book, and I even got him to complain a few times. It's very difficult, but I got him to do it. He was very interested in the ear. He used to compose music. He had no piano in the house. It's something every arranger, at least I aspire to do. But I have to have a piano really close, right here. This is a song called "There's a Star on the Horizon" that Shelby Flint wrote. And this is Sherry Izzard, this is Michael Bashaw, and the star is Ron tonight. Your days may wander and take you far, and you may feel like a stranger everywhere you are. But as you ramble and as you run, there's a star on the horizon, looking over, look away, looking over, look away. As you ramble, as you run, there's a star on the horizon.
Ron's oldest grandchild is Jackson's older brother, Austin. And you've probably all seen the Jack in the Box commercials with Jack and his big round white head. Well, a number of years ago, there was a series of these commercials featuring a little Jack, Jack's son. Well, that was Austin. And now we have an opportunity to see the face behind that white head. He'd like to say a few words now. Austin?
For as long as I can remember, Bebop, I call him Bebop, I've called him Bebop since I was born, so that's what I've known him by. He has just taught me so much through music, and when I got the phone call on it was the 28th, I was literally speechless. I was in my dorm in San Francisco, and I got the phone call from my mom, and I sat down straight on the couch, and I didn't know what to think. Like, as I talked to my grandma, it felt like a bad dream. Like, you just wanted to wake up from it. And so I walked back to my room, I put on my iTunes, put the radio on, and the funny thing was Miles Davis was playing. And that's something that he showed me. Like, I would never have seen the side of jazz, side of blues, anything like of that sort. And for him, like, what he's given me, it's just amazing. And we've all been touched by him. Friends, colleagues, brother, husband. We've all grown from Ron, or Bebop as we call him. And it's so sad. I still haven't had that good cry yet, and I have not been able to deal with this yet. So it's so sad, and I can't believe he's gone. And it's just really hard to deal with this. And I'm so glad you guys all joined us and all stayed. It's very, very good to have us you all here. Thank you very much.
If you ask Ron what time it is, he'll probably say, "You mean right now?" Anyway, you'll be glad you waited until this long, because right now, it's time to hear from someone who's meant a lot to Ron and Judy throughout the years. World-renowned songwriter, film composer, and incredible wit, Randy Newman.
I heard of this event was happening and volunteered my services. I didn't know that I'd be the crappiest act on the bill. I kind of thought I was like good King Wenceslas. But the musicality of the people who are here, Conrad Pope is certainly one of the top orchestrators in town, and that means being one of the best composers nowadays, the way things are. People hum in his ear and he writes it. And Ira Hershman, whom I'm sitting next to, is one of the leading arrangers and one of the leading composers for band in the world. And Chantal Krovesiak is along with Elton John, the best pianist in rock and roll, I think, and one of the most literate and best artists. The level of musicianship here, even with the children, there was no like real clinkers. No one played "It Don't Mean a Thing If It Ain't Got That Swing," and you realize what it meant, which I've seen. And I'm going to keep this as short as possible. This is the longest I've gone without peeing in about 6 years. So the song that the family has requested is short, and I'll play. The milk truck hauls the sun up face the door. The subway shakes my floor, and I think about you. Time to face the dawning gray of another lonely day. Baby, it's so hard living without you. It's so hard. It's so hard. Baby, it's so hard living without you. Everyone's got something. They are trying to get some more. They got something to get up for. Well, I ain't about to. Nothing's gonna happen. Nothing's gonna change. Baby, it's so hard living without you. It's so hard. It's so hard. Baby, it's so hard living without you.
Thank you all for coming. Talk amongst yourselves.
Thank you.